Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a very special message for you today. It's a message particularly about hidden enemies and energetic interference. Full disclaimer, this may be a bit triggering for some. For me personally, it could even be a bit embarrassing to express. However, I've been healing from the spirit of pride, which is why I feel most compelled to share this highly spiritual and symbolic message with you right now. Because I believe that the clarity and comfort and confirmation and even confidence it might bring to you is far more valuable and vital than any spirit of shame. So here goes. Spoiler alert, stay tuned till the end to hear how you win, okay? Now, this message is entitled Mousetrap. About 1 to 2 months ago, I had a small pest infestation in my apartment. I say small because the entities themselves were small. It was mice, but it was like a family of them, which is why it was an infestation. I saw at least 2 to 3, maybe even 4 that I could identify as babies. About 1 or 2 like medium-sized mice, and then there was one really large mouse. Definitely not a rat, but a large mouse. So what I noticed was that they were most active in the kitchen and in my son's room, unfortunately. Now, spiritual side note, the kitchen is like the central source of nourishment in the home space, and the bedroom is the most intimate space of rest, right? So just keep that in mind. I was in denial at first. I knew that my house was clean. My house is always clean for the most part. It's pretty regularly exterminated. I had issues in the past, 1 or 2 here or there, and it had been rectified and exterminated. And I hadn't seen any activity for a long time. And even when my son, I think he was like the first to feel like he heard something or saw something, and I was like almost in denial, like dismissive about it, like no, don't even say it, don't even speak that into existence, almost like flipped out on them at one point in time because I just did not want to deal with that energetic confrontation, okay? But it didn't take long before, I began to sense the pest presence before it was visual, wasn't evident in my environment yet, but some of the things that I began to experience were like crumbling sounds when the mouse is like trying to bite into something or dig into something. Of course, and unfortunately, the droppings that they leave behind in certain places. And sometimes they even leave behind a smell, or you can smell the presence of, that pestilence in a sense. And it causes immediate discomfort, anxiety, paranoia. You don't know if they're going to jump out of a closet. You're afraid to leave anything out. And for some, even fear. I'm not quite as fearful of them because I know they usually run away from you. But the discomfort and anxiety alone is enough, in your own home. So I want to say that mice spiritually are monitoring spirits. They're nocturnal creatures, which signify that, dark intentions, not the mice themselves, but the connotation of mice, especially being in an intimate space. Their presence indicates that there's some vulnerability in your environment, whether it be physically or in your force field, which is more spiritual or energetic. And it often indicates that some external energy is either spying, intruding, or trying to interfere to ultimately disturb the balance or security of a space. Specifically in this case, it was to disturb the comfort of my home. So it's a warning to cleanse, clarify, and fortify your energetic field when you see mice present. So what do? You call on a higher power to regulate, right? i.e. to exterminate. And the exterminator is the one that has the experience and the expertise to evaluate and alleviate the extraneous circumstances. So what he did is he sealed cracks behind the stove that were discovered. He filled a hole that was left behind in my son's room from the last treatment. They missed a hole. And then he laid down poison and some sticky traps in hidden spaces where the mice like to traffic. I noticed quick results, like almost immediate to my surprise, thankfully. I didn't see any activity for a while. And then one day, I saw that large one again. I stepped into my son's room and he startled me running toward the heater, which was the space where the last hole was filled. Now, spiritual side note number 2, my son's room is probably the most desolate room in the house. He's hardly ever in there, believe it or not. And his energy, being a child, is the most vulnerable. Also consider that. The mouse was trying to escape from the hole he came in through, but now it was blocked. So fast forward to today. This lovely Saturday morning, I woke up in my living room. My eyes fluttered open to the rays of the sunlight, and what do they meet immediately but that large mouse. And this time, he was crouched close to the wall, like totally still. I honestly couldn't even tell if it was asleep or dead. You know, I moved around to like rouse it up, but it didn't move. So it was laying there on the way to the bathroom, which is coincidentally also in the direction of my son's room. And there was no way really to unsee it or to move around it, especially if I wanted to go to the bathroom. So I made a beeline to the kitchen, which is in the opposite direction, to gather some tools to grab it and bag it, essentially. But before I went in for the big sweep, I decided to slam the broom near it just to test, one last time if there was any movement. Lo and behold, it rustled up and almost seemed startled, yet it still didn't run away right away. And that to me, in my experience, is very unusual behavior, because usually mice dart off and hide at the first sense of human movement. So I got the sense at that point that it must be weak, and probably from the poison that it ingested that was laying around. So I decided to slam the broom one more again to shoo it away, because the last thing I wanted was to try to pick it up and it, run at me or run up my arm or something. In that moment, I was a bit fearful. I didn't want to get too close, knowing now that it actually was alive. And I didn't have the heart, even though it was weak, I could see that. I didn't have the heart or the stomach to just take the broom and beat it to death, So this time, when I slammed the broom down, it gathered its strength and slowly began to run away. And I mean, this was like the slowest escape I've ever seen a living mouse make, honestly. It ended up running behind the couch. I haven't seen it since. It's now late afternoon at this point. I haven't seen it since, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to end up expiring ultimately. And that sucks for me and it, because it's terrible when a mouse dies and you can't necessarily find it. And unless I keep checking back there and looking for it, I'll probably end up smelling it before I actually come across it, which is symbolic in itself. So the symbological point of this story is, I know you're waiting. Many have, myself included, been the target of hidden enemies. In a personal way, it's been family, friends, frenemies, foes, even coworkers. In a general sense, it's been community and cultural and even societal external influences. Many have also been enlightened to these revelations through emotional or intuitive intelligence, directing on how to act or react in favor of the highest protection possible. In some cases, there have been no physical receipts for these revelations, but extreme energetic experiences, even in my case, compelled me to detach from many people, places, and things, to limit my exposure to external interferences, to completely clear my energetic field in spirit and in truth, to proactively protect myself and my son with healing practices, to tune into that still small voice guiding me from within. And all of this at the cost of being ostracized, gossiped about, lied on, harassed, stalked, defrauded, mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically attacked, and ultimately gaslit about it all by the same said hidden enemies. It's honestly been the ultimate test of fate and feat of strength. Justice for you, for me, is freedom and liberation from oppression and oppressors, to live a divinely ordained life as it was always meant to be. Judgment for them is as follows. Consider the mouse, to be exposed and no longer cloaked in the darkness, to be disoriented and out of its element and thrust into the light, to be exhausted and completely depleted of disruptive energy and influence, to be vulnerable to attacks itself, to be living with an expiration date or dead on the inside and or even physically dying any day now, to be trapped by their own interference, to be infected by their own poison, i.e. greed, lust, and lies. There was also an impression upon me about how it kind of played possum a bit. And to me, I received from that they're sometimes when you're in that vulnerable position based on your own demise, sometimes they might want to play possum and bait, some level of trap for sympathy or even empathy for their circumstances, ultimately being in need of healing or relief from their own discomfort or dis-ease. And then they also want to conceal their demise, like the mouse ran and hid under the couch. They don't really want people to see their demise, but in essence, unlike the mouse, there's really nowhere to hide once the spirit calls judgment. Their guilt and remorse and shame emits a vibration that ultimately releases a foul stench. And it permeates every, piece of their existence, every extent of their existence. Even out of sight and out of mind, the smell of decay can be sniffed out. So that after their imminent expiration, that stench will be the lasting legacy left behind. That will be the memory that they leave behind. How sad and how sorry is that, honestly? Now, as for you and I, and anyone that can relate to the other side of that experience, the spirit compels us to keep vibrations ultra high. Mind your business, drink your water, stay grounded in grace, be indifferent to divine judgment, neither celebration nor sorrow. Remember that forgiveness is key holistically. Faith is the focus forward. Love is the elixir of life. You can never be, do, or have too much of it. It is so, and so it is. Till next time, peace.